And it's interesting that you do bring up PulseX and the fact that he didn't bring it up, because he did in a subsequent tweet get into the power of PulseX actually. So I don't know if he purposely saved it for that reason, but that's a perfect segue for us to head over and check out Richard Hart's tweet about PulseX. So we'll do that next here. And, I just want a little quick preamble about PulseX. I mean, it's so interesting, like what has happened with this since the launch of Pulse, before the launch of Pulse Chain. So, I mean, if you've been here for whatever, 3 years at this point, you remember a lot of the narratives about PulseX before Pulse actually launched, about like the buy and burn. Like the product is the product. The product hasn't changed, and it is, pretty much as advertised. But, the buy and burn built into it was the main thing, and people talking about like, oh, it can do a 10,000x, and it can do this, and mathematically, if the buy and burn gets to this number and stuff like that. We just crossed 5% of the tokens of PulseX being burnt permanently. So that is awesome. We just got to there after this thing's been around for almost a year and a half. But there was such a huge narrative about PulseX. Well, also because they're, first off, the prices that people could sacrifice for PulseX tokens were still good, that you could sacrifice for it, and more people were able to get in on the sacrifice. Way more people sacrifice tokens for PulseX, so about 3 times as many, which we've covered many, many times. So the price of PulseX was just absolute dirt garbage out of the gate. It's the ratio against Pulse. I mean, we don't have to bring up the chart. We've done it many times. We mentioned it earlier in the show, but it's straight up and to the right against Pulse, basically. But I mean, I remember it being consistently for a while like a 1-to-4 ratio. I mean, we've been under 1-to-2 now for a while. So I mean, it is just absolutely ripped. And it would be such an arc. We've talked about it with Frank Molina many times, for PulseX to have this, like, all this crazy build up. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's obsessing over it before the launch of Pulse Chain. Then it falls flat on its face. It's the redheaded stepchild. Everybody's shitting all over it. Like, what do you mean there's not single-sided staking? I thought there was going to be this and that and all these things. And, after all this bearishness, we see that its ratio starts to close. It's burning all these tokens. And in the end, it might just reign supreme that, like, the product is still the product and it's still going to do very well, which would be a very interesting arc for it overall. So all that to just say, we'll take a look at his tweet. So GoPulse.com shows that over 1 trillion PulseX have been burned. There's just not that much PulseX available for sale on PulseX. That's not even 2 trillion total across all the pairs. Even if you had 100 million of DAI, you'll only get 0.3 trillion PulseX. You could split the DAI on the ETH side into ETH, USDT, USDC to get more Pulse more efficiently to swap for PulseX, or for Ink to PulseX. Auto Router already does that, and you'll get more, but still there's just not much PulseX for sale in the AMM compared to how much is shown burn. Remember that PulseX, the prices move as a square function. So every time you double one side of a pair, you have the other side, making a 4x price move. So if you want to reduce the PulseX available in the AMM by 10x, then you have to 10x the other side as well. And that in isolation would be a 100x price move. Not advice, to your own research. Anyway, most of the liquidity in a well-functioning market isn't sitting in an order book usually. For instance, what percentage of total houses are for sale at any given moment? And what percentage of total money is sitting in bids? Math is fun. TLDR, I'm surprised how much the buy and burn function people execute is eating up PulseX supply. So he's obviously pleasantly surprised with how many of these tokens have already been burned. The lack that's actually for sale. I mean, we just ticked up over 5%. And yeah, the thing has been working flawlessly. And this has all been, in times of very low activity on the chain, compared to where I think we're about to start going here. So, obviously we have lots of meme trading and all kinds of stuff over the last year and people buying the tokens. But yeah, what do you make of this? And I think it's very bullish for PulseX.
Well, yeah, it's very bullish. So I just pulled it up. It's actually, where is it here? 1 billion or 1 trillion, 12 billion, 101 million, which comes to only, like, if you're comparing it to the price, it's $31 million of PulseX. However, what he says about the available, what's for sale, is so little that you would jack the price up, and people just don't understand that. They come out and they say, well, market cap this or market cap that. It's still so very irrelevant with what people just don't understand. You have to look at what's for sale. what sits on the order books, what sits in the automatic market makers, what's there, and how much would a buy actually jack the price up? And people just don't understand that. So a lot of these things, when we were talking last week about the price predictions for Pulse, and someone said that we were estimating too low, even at 450 or
No,
600.
they were saying that I was not bullish enough. They were okay
Well,
with you, but
I
yeah,
no, I
maybe,
think the guy even said it could go 1000x, because my 600x was too low. So it really can, and market cap doesn't matter. The problem is we still have a lot of people that have a lot of this, and we have talked about that with Frank before. How when the Pulse chain sacrifice happened, there were very few in the know, right? But once that became popular and people missed out on it, and then several months later when PulseX happened, there were that many more people in the network, and probably 3 times as many people got in on that one. So, it is a heavy coin. However, you still have to look at how much of it's for sale, how much of this is going to get burned. I mean, just a year we burned 1 trillion of the supply. That's crazy. What happens in 5 years when there's that much more just gone forever? Going to be interesting to see how it plays out, especially with if they do introduce single-sided staking. Well, I don't think you're going to get Pulse X for that. You'll probably get incentive token or something else as a reward, because PulseX is completely deflationary, right? So after 5 years, like I said, if that many of these things get burned, at that point, it's just going to crazy increase the price. It's taking a while now, but I think down the road, long term, people could see some pretty interesting price action on this. So yeah, it's pretty neat just to sit there and watch, not sit there and watch it, but I check in on it occasionally to see how close we've gotten. And then once it passed that trillion, it was, it's just, to me, it's a crazy amount of coins that we'll just never see again, that aren't ever going to be available. And it's definitely going to help the price out.
And for it to already be 5%, I mean, that's like a whopping amount.
I know.
To already be gone. I mean, and again, in these times, I mean, like, yeah, maybe we're halfway through the bull market or whatever in terms of time, but I mean, in terms of like, we haven't had that asymmetric upside or anywhere near that yet. So, yeah, you figure there's going to be a lot more volume coming and things like that. So it's just going to get crazy. And to your point too, like you were talking about, like if and when single-sided or however kind of staking would come, the developers and everything have been very strategic in the deployment of anything new on PulseX. And we've seen in the last few weeks probably the most rollouts that we've ever seen on PulseX. Even that stuff outside of the stable pools, which is tremendously bullish. But even that stuff has been just kind of like,
whatever.
Nothing crazy, like nothing that's going to make you, just head over heels. But the stable pools are definitely huge. I mean, it's good for like bulls coming into whales and stuff coming into the ecosystem. And of course, if you later on, like maybe in the bull market, if you're selling or whatever, to throw all your stables in a pool and earn yield on that, that's terrific, obviously, and a huge addition. I'm very happy about that. But it's just been like, okay, it's way faster, which I can verify. I was just telling you, I just was on it making some moves the other day. PulseX is extremely faster. Things, transactions going through way more quickly, looks way sleeker. They have photos or icons for all the tokens that are on there. You don't have to import all these tokens. It's all that's good. But I think we're nowhere near what's going to come in terms of upgrades to it, in addition. So
yeah, I don't either. I think there's more to come, and I think as we get into this bull market, they will definitely add them, which just increases the want and the need to be a part of the ecosystem as things get better and better and better. We've talked about it all the time. He's a chess player. He's very strategic. He knows what he's doing, and I think people underestimate these small little moves to possibly shake the people that don't belong here out, and put things in at the right time when it really matters, and that's going to play a huge part in the success of this whole chain, this whole ecosystem.